Welcome to Harp Gathering Online 2020. My name is Denise Grupp-Verbon, and I'm very excited to have you here with me. This is Violet. She's along for the ride. She's here to help us along the way. And my workshop is called Finger Puzzles and Shapes for the Harp. Has it ever occurred to you that while you're playing your harp and reading your music, that there are all kinds of shapes and puzzles that your fingers are doing along the way? The first thing to look at, we'll talk about shapes. So the harp strings have natural shapes just by looking at them without even thinking about it. Going from a C up to an F is called a fourth. C is 1. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's a fourth, and you can see it just by looking right at your harp strings, from the C up to the F. Now, the second shape that's really easy to see on your harp, automatically without even realizing that it's there, is a fifth. And that's going from F up to C. So you count, the first one is 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So before you even start learning about shapes on the harp, you have 2 that are automatic that we see just by glancing at the harp strings. Before we even think about playing shapes or finding them in our music, we have shapes just looking at the harp. Going from C up to F is a fourth. And going from any F up to a C is called a fifth. Those are the 2 automatic shapes that are right on your harp without even thinking about it. We'll start with going down to a third, the very basic shape of a third, which is 2 strings with 1 empty string in the middle. So we'll look at a C up to an E. So you have C, D, E, 1, 2, 3. And so when you have a third, you have from the C to the E, and it's called a third. Now, what's very interesting is not only can you see that shape on the harp, but the shape can also be seen in your music. So when you look at your music, a third could be from a line to the next line, or from a space to the next space. You can find a third anywhere on your harp, going with an empty string in the middle of any 2 strings. So we talked about C up to E with that empty string of a D in the middle. But you can also find a third from, say, A to C, and you can play them together or separately. You can also find a third from G to B. 1, 2, 3. And when you can recognize those in the music, it helps you read your music quicker. And lots of times when I'm teaching students to read music for the first time, I tell them that if you can recognize those intervals, you don't have to look at the page. For example, many times when students are first-time music readers, they look at the page and they see the C and the E, and I'll hear them saying out loud, C, E. But it's easier if you look at that and start to learn that that is a third, and all you need to do is put your thumb on that top note, in this case, an E, and look at it and know that it's a third, and learn what that feels like to your fingers. So there are a couple of different things to look at. You see the third on the harp. 3 strings with an unused string in the middle. There's C to E. Here's F to A, another third. Or A to C. So you've learned what it looks like on your harp. You've also learned what it looks like on your music. 2 lines or 2 spaces, one right next to the other, equals a third. The last thing to learn and to recognize is what does that third feel like to your hand, whether it be your right hand or your left hand. you will learn what a third feels like, and you should, we'll see if I can do it, you should be able to reach to the harp without looking and put your fingers on a third without even thinking about it. Let's see if I can do it. I did it. Yay. So it's a C on the strings, it's a C in the music, and it's a feel to your hand. So you can practice those thirds by simply playing the thirds blocked. And what does that feel like to your hand? So you could just do a scale going up. And going back down again. So if you like, you can play it with me. You can back it up and play it with me. I'll do it with the left hand now. An octave lower, same thing. You can learn what that shape looks like in bass clef. Exactly the same. Line to line or space to space. Also what it looks like on the harp and what it feels like to your left hand. So let's do another scale of thirds, starting on octave lower. Another thing you can do to learn what that feels like on the harp, very fun, we'll stay on thirds for a little bit, is to do like a stair stepping going up the harp. It's very fun, it sounds cool, and it lets you work your way up the harp as broken thirds instead of blocked thirds, because we were doing blocked thirds. Now you can identify a third as two strings separately as well. And now we'll do it going down. You want to take your time so you can practice closing your hand, of course, and learning what that feels like on your harp. Let's try it with the left hand. And now let's go down. We'll just do it backwards. I recommend, no matter what level of a player you are, to always take these very slowly. We're not in a hurry. We're not playing a piece of music where we want to hear the melody and we want it to be finished. We're just practicing, working our way up the harp, learning what those thirds feel like, what they sound like. It's a good idea to take your time. We're not in any kind of a hurry. So let's next look at seconds. I usually start with thirds because it helps us learn about just kind of keeping our hand open and being comfortable. And seconds are, of course, two strings right next to one another. So we were working with C and E as a third. But now we're going to look at seconds. For example, C to D, or maybe F to G. Or if we were in the left hand, maybe we're doing a G to an A, or a B to a C. Seconds might happen if you're playing a melody, and those are a little different for working your way up the harp because they don't connect quite as well because you can't get ready. So if you want to practice the seconds to learn what they feel like to your fingers, 2 strings right next to one another, it feels a certain way. On the music page, it's a line to a space or a space to a line, and they're right next to each other. It's a second. 1, 2, that's where it gets the name of a second. So if you wanted to practice playing those to see what they feel like, you could do them played together. It's a little bit inharmonious, but you could do it to practice it. We can start with the C and the D, and here's what it sounds like. We'll just work our way up the scale and work our way back down the scale like we did with the thirds. It's a little inharmonious, but it's kind of fun to do. And then we'll go back down. And we can do the same thing in the left hand, starting an octave lower. Also going to be inharmonious sounding. Now, when you're working with the left hand in particular, you're working with strings that vibrate a little more, right, than the strings in the right hand. And so as you're playing these, you want to be very careful in your placement because there's a possibility of lots of buzzing here. So here's an example if I wasn't being as careful. See how you can buzz if you're crashing into the ringing strings? So you want to be very precise in putting your fingers back on, and always think about where that thumb goes first, and it kind of leads you, and you want to go slowly and just be very precise. And that time I had a couple of buzzes, so it's a little bit of a challenge. Now, in the left hand, we don't play seconds all that often. We're usually playing more chordal things, but it's a good thing to learn in both hands. So we've studied thirds and we've studied seconds. Next, we'll talk about fourths. Remember at the beginning, I talked about how a fourth is one of the intervals that's so easy to see on the harp. C, red string, F, blue, black, purple sometimes, right? 2 strings with 2 unused strings in the middle. You could go from C to F. You could potentially go from G to C. There's your 2 empty strings in the middle, and the count, it becomes a fourth in music because you have 1, 2, 3, 4. G, A, B, C. Now on the music page, this one looks a little funny. I always say it looks like you're standing on a curb with 1 foot on the curb and 1 foot on the street because it looks crooked. A fourth on the music page is going to be from a space to a line or a line to a space. And it just kind of looks crooked. It's 1 more than a third, but it's not even because of that space, line, line, space, right? So once again, same thing. You're going to learn what a fourth looks like in your music, what it looks like on the harp, and what it feels like to your hand. Can you go to the harp and say, put fingers 1 and 2 on a fourth? Hopefully you can. So something to practice, right? I don't always get it every time either. So you want to practice these blocked like we did with the thirds especially, and work up the harp and back down. Now there is going to be one that's a little unharmonious because it's a special kind of a fourth called a tritone, but we'll just go right past it. So here's what to practice so you can get the feeling of the fourths. And now back down. And we can do it with the left hand, just starting an octave lower, exactly the same thing. And think about taking your time because of those strings ringing, and we want to avoid buzzing if we can. And now back down. Now, remember when we did the broken thirds? This is very fun to do. We'll do that with the fourths as well. We'll start on C again, and we'll just kind of go up the harp, kind of like stair steps, and then we'll come back down again. So it'll be broken fourths this time. And then we'll go back down, upside down, backwards, thumb first this time. Now we'll try broken with the left hand, like we just did with the right hand. Again, take your time because those strings are very vibraty down there, and we want to avoid buzzing if we can, so we're not in a hurry. Let's see if I can avoid the buzzing. And now we'll go back down, starting with the thumb. So you may guess that the next interval is that of a fifth. Now, remember at the beginning when I talked about the intervals you can see on the harp instantly? Well, a fifth is one of those. F up to C is a fifth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the two of them together. And if you look at it on the harp, there are 3 empty strings in the middle. F up to C is a fifth. You could play D up to A, and there are 3 empty strings in the middle for that. D, E, F, G, A, and there's your fifth. You could have another fifth from A to E. A, B, C, D, E. Now, fifths most commonly, although there are exceptions to every rule, of course, are played with 1 and 3. And in a little bit, you'll find out why you want to use 1 and 3. But when you're playing the fifth, you want to have that number 2 finger down and out of the way because, well, we're going to use it later. We don't want to do this because it's kind of uncomfortable for your hand. So just kind of keep that 2 down. Now, we want to make sure to talk about the fifth on the musical page. So remember how thirds were either line to line or space to space? Kind of handy, kind of even. Well, fifths are line to line or space to space, but there's an unused line or space in the middle. Because if you think about a fifth, let's use the C down to the F or F up to C. If you think about it, it's made up of 2 thirds stacked on top of one another. The F to the A is the third, 1, 2, 3. And the A to the C is a third. And when you're finished, you have a fifth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So when you look at the fifth on the page, line to line or space to space, it's very even looking. It's just got an unused one in the middle. Another interval to try to teach your hand, what does it feel like? So you've got what does it look like on the harp? What does it look like in the music? And what shape does it feel like to your hand when you put your hand on the harp? Now we're going to see if I can put my right hand on a fifth without looking. I promise I'm not looking. Let's see if I can do it. I did. I found D up to A. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So now, similarly to how we studied the other intervals, we're going to play fifths going up the harp. And let's start with the right hand. we'll go ahead and start with C up to G for our first one. And we'll go up in blocked chords. And then we'll go back down. And then we'll try the same thing with the left hand, starting an octave lower with a fifth from C up to G. And once again, taking your time with left hand because of those strings bouncing back at you. And now back down. Fifths are reasonably harmonious. They're very fun and very pretty to play. So now let's do the broken. And we'll start with left hand this time, where we're doing the stair steps going up the harp. It lets you have the feeling of those broken fifths, and as kind of part of an arpeggio or something you might be playing in your music. We'll start on C again, and we'll work our way up the harp, kind of like little stair steps going up. And now for down, we'll start with our thumb first. And now we'll play the broken ones with the right hand so you can try it. We'll start with C and G. Since we're in the key of C, that's very handy. And we'll go up stair steps and back down again. And now we'll go down and we'll start with the thumb. So, you may guess that the next interval we will study will be sixths. We started out with thirds, for example, F to A is a third. Then we studied seconds, which are a bit dissonant, like F to G. Then we looked at fourths. Our favorite fourth is C up to F. Then the next interval we had was a fifth. Our favorite fifth being F up to C. Our next interval is going to be the sixth. Sixths are hard to say, but very pretty to play and very common in harp. They're used often as harmony below a melody. You might be playing a melody with your thumb and putting a sixth below that. So it's a common shape to learn for your fingers. Now a sixth is two strings with three unused strings in the middle. For example, C up to A is a sixth. So you have C, D, E, F, G, and A is number 6. So when you put your fingers on the strings, you have two strings with 4 empty strings in the middle. Now, on the musical page, a sixth is one bigger than a fifth, naturally. But it looks funny too, like a fourth looks crooked. A sixth also looks crooked because it either goes from a space up to a line or a line up to a space. And you will begin to recognize what that looks like, that it's one larger than a fifth. This is probably my favorite interval because it is so pretty. So let's try it. Most commonly played with 1 and 3, although there are always exceptions. But let's do it with 1 and 3, and we'll start with our thumb on A and our 3 on C, and we'll go ahead and play our traditional octave of intervals going up and then coming back down. Let's give it a try. This is the sixth. And let's try it going down. Now, a sixth is most commonly played in the right hand because of the melody and harmony, but it's good to learn these intervals in both hands. There'll be other situations where we need it in the left hand as well, which you will soon find out. Let's try the blocked sixths in the left hand, and let's use the C and the A again. Once again, go kind of slowly to watch for those buzzes in the left hand. Now let's try it going down. So next, as an activity of learning what those feel like, let's try the stair steps again. We'll start with left hand this time. We'll do the same two notes, C and A, and we'll do the stair steps going up, and then we'll do the stair steps going down. Now for down, we'll play our thumb first and just do it backwards. And now let's play the stair steps in the right hand. Thumb on A, 3 on C, and off we go. And let's try it going down. We'll do the thumb first for going down. Are you noticing that when I'm playing the sixth, similar to the fifths, my 2 is down? You'll see why soon enough. 2 stays down. So, now our next interval is that of a seventh. Now a seventh is kind of like a third and a fifth. It can go from a line to a line or from a space to a space. It is also a little bit dissonant. We do it with 1 and 4 now, because sometimes we're playing a whole chord and we need that 2 and that 3. Most of the time a seventh is 1 and 4. Notice how my 2 and 3 are also down, out of the way, because I might need them later. A seventh could be from a C up to a B. It could be from an F up to an E. It's got a little bit of dissonance to it, but also very cool. Let's try sevenths going up blocked like we did with the other intervals. Here we go. Oh, And I should also say that now there are 5 unused strings in the middle. So we have C, D, E, F, G, A, B. 1 through 7 creates a 7th. So here we go. Let's try it. And then back down again. Pretty dissonant, aren't they? But we'll learn them anyway. Now, I also earlier, remember, I'm trying to find these without peaking. Let's see if I can find a 7th without peaking. This one, as they get longer, I'm easier with 8ths, octaves, when we get to that. Let's see if I can do a 7th. Let's try it. I promise I'm not looking. Let's see if I can do it. Up, I went straight for an octave. So I can't say that I can get that one every time. You give it a try and let me know, will you? Let's do the 7ths in the left hand as blocked again, starting on the C and the B. Once again, a little dissonant, but a good thing to practice. And now we'll go back down. So, welcome to the last interval that we will look at today, which is, well, it's an 8th, but we call it an octave. And an octave, of course, goes between 2 strings of the same name, just the next one up or the next one down. So you could be going from a C to a C, an A to an A D to a D, a G to a G. It's an octave. When your fingers are placed on an octave, I don't really think about how many empty strings there are in between, but let's find out. So we have G up to G, and let's find out how many empties. We have A, B, C, 3, D, E, F, 6. So an octave is 2 strings with 6 empties in the middle. You don't necessarily have to think about that because it's going between 2 of the exact same note. So it makes it a little bit easier to find. On the musical page, it's something you have to kind of learn to spot because it isn't as quick to see on the page. It goes from a line to a space or a space to a line, and you'll get better at recognizing octaves as you go along. But let's practice playing them because we use them a lot in our music. We'll start with the right hand. We'll start on C since we're in the key of C, and we'll just go up an octave, blocked, and we'll come back down again. Notice how, just like when I was playing the 7ths, my 2 and 3 are down and out of the way because I might need them later. And also, it's much more relaxed to have your 2 and 3 down than having them sticking up. It's better. It's more relaxed for your hand. So let's go ahead and do a series of octaves with the left hand. And for the left hand, I'm going to start on G. And we'll just play them blocked going up and blocked coming back down. Now, one tip, because those lower strings are kind of the more ringy strings, right? So when you're placing these, think about where your thumb goes first, and that'll help your 4th finger, hopefully, not make the buzz. We'll see if I can do the whole octave up and down without any or too many buzzes. Pretty good. Let's see if I can do it going down. We'll start at the same place and go back down. too bad. I did pretty well with that, I would have to say. So we've found intervals without looking. We have discovered the shape on the page, the shape on the harp, and the shape in our hand. We've looked at some patterns going up and going back down. So remember how I talked about, let's go back to fifths for a minute. Remember how I was talking about when you have your two fingers on a fifth, like say C up to G. Remember I was talking about having your two be down because you might need it later? So the reason is, guess what? Now, a C to a G are the two outside, what I would call outside notes, to a C triad, C major triad in this case. So our two was down. Now we're going to drop it into the middle, and we're going to play a triad. C, E, G. And we can play them all together as a group. Now the makeup of the triad has intervals inside of it, right? The C to the E is a third. The E to the G is a third, right? And the C to the G is a fifth. So the triad is made up of thirds and fifths sort of combined in different ways. So this, for example, is a C major triad. And that sounds so pretty, doesn't it? Now, a little bit of theory for you. When we spell, it's called spelling a triad. We have the C, E, G. That's how you spell a C major triad. And when we spell a triad, we spell it in thirds. So if we had C, E, G, we have C major. If I spell an F major triad, I would say F, A, C. And that's actually called root position when it's spelled in thirds like that. That's how we determine the name of the triad. For the moment, we're just going to play the triads to work our way up and down the harp so you can practice what that feels like and what it sounds like. You will get better at just being able to find those without even looking at the harp. So we'll try a scale going up with a triad going from C to C, and then we'll go down and we'll try it with the left hand as well. Here we go. And now we'll go down. It seems fair to do it with the left hand as well. So we'll go to the C an octave lower, and we'll play those triads going up the scale and then coming back down the scale. You can join me if you'd like. And now we'll go back down. Now, one of my favorite things about triads is there are different ways to play them. So let's take that C major triad as an example, and let's look at those three notes. So we have C, E, and G. Well, just like if you had three pillows of three different colors on your couch, you can arrange them in a different order if you want to. So our root, what they call root position triad, is the C, E, G, which we discussed, right? Now I can rearrange those and take my C and move it up to the top. And so now instead of C, E, G, now I've moved the C up to the top, and I'm going to put my thumb on that C, and here's the G, and here's the E. I just took the C and put it up here and moved my fingers up. Now we have the same three notes, but in a different order. E, G, C. Same chord, just shuffled. So now, let's take that. It's called an inversion. I'll tell you a little more in a minute. Let's play that inversion of that C triad, but we're going to go up the harp and we'll play inversions of every triad going up that scale. Now my thumb is leading, and we're going to start on C and we're going to end on C with our thumb. So here's what happens. It's the same 3 notes, but they're rearranged and they have a little different sound. Let's try it. And now let's go back down. Now let's compare these again for a minute. When we had that first triad that you learned, the C, E, G, okay, or whatever the 3 notes are, but we'd like to look at the C for a good example. That was called root position because it's spelled in thirds. C to E is a third, E to G is a third, and there's your shape, right? Your finger shape. Then we rearranged it. We moved the C up to an octave higher, and then we scooched our fingers around, still using fingers 1, 2, and 3. But look what we have. We've changed the intervals. Now, at the bottom, we have the E to the G, which is still a third, right? But look, because I moved the C up here, look at here. The top of this arrangement of this chord is now a fourth. G, A, B, C. 1, 2, 3, 4 is now a fourth. So we had the root position, which is spelled in thirds, C to E, E to G. That's one shape. Then we move that C up to the top. And now we have E to G, which is a third, and G to C, which is a fourth. So we have a new shape, a new finger shape. But we still have the same exact chord. So this is called root position that you learned. And when you move it up so that the E is the bottom note, it's called first inversion, meaning you inverted the notes. You moved the 3 pillows on the couch around. So, big surprise. There's going to be a second inversion because since we have 3 pitches, we're going to have another finger shape. So what are we going to do? Now we're going to take that E. So we had, let's go back, we'll do one at a time. So we had the C, E, G for the root position. Then I moved the C up here. And we had the E, G, and C for what? First inversion. Now, what am I going to do? I'm going to move that E up here now. So that the lowest note is now going to be a G. So we had... Then we move up to here. Now we're going to move that E up here. We're still using fingers 1, 2, and 3. But now it's going to be a different sound. Listen to this now. But look at the shape. Remember we had 2 thirds, C to E and E to G. Then we moved to first inversion. We had E to G, which was a third, and G to C, which was a fourth, right? Now we're going to move it again, and this is called second inversion, where we've got the G on the bottom, the C in the middle, and the E on top. Look at here. The G to the C is the fourth, and the C to the E is the third. So it's really pretty to listen to all 3 of them together. So listen to this. There's your root position. There's your first inversion. And here's your second inversion. Doesn't it kind of sound like we should finish it? So if you want to work with those inversions and see what they're like on your harp, learn what they sound like, learn what they feel like, you could play root, first, second, and back to what? Root. we can practice that same group of inversions in the left hand. You've got your C, E, G in root position, C to E being a third, E to G being a third. Then we're going to move the pillows around on the couch. We're going to take that C and put it on top. And we're going to have the E to the G, which is a third, and the G to the C, which is a fourth. Still a C chord, just like the pillows on the couch. We rearranged them. That's first inversion. Then we can move it again and have the G, C, and E. Second inversion. Fourth on the bottom, third on the top. And then I always think it sounds like we should finish it. So you have root, first, second, and back to root. So you're learning all sorts of different finger shapes, but at the same time, you're learning how to see them on the page, but learning how to play them. And look at the different options you have when you're playing chords to make your arrangement sound different, or to just change a little something about an arrangement you're already working on. Say, well, what if I put this in an inversion? What will that sound like? One thing you can do with those inversions to practice them and kind of get around the harp with them is to play them in succession, like I just did blocked, but you can do it broken as well. And I'll do it for you in each hand. So I would start with the root position, and so you can break them up. And then do it backwards going down. And you can do exactly the same thing with the left hand, starting with root position. And then we'll do it backwards going down. Now, once you've got these chords down of the different shapes, you can do it with any chord you like. We were doing it with C major because it's easy. Everybody knows C major pretty much. You can also turn this into a finger puzzle. Finger puzzle meaning you're kind of changing the different ways that your hand works. So you can take root position, first inversion, second inversion, but we're going to break it up a little. We're going to play our number 2 finger first, followed by 1 and 3. It's a little finger puzzle. It helps you teach independence of the fingers. So you put all 3 fingers on, so you can play the 2 first, followed by the 1 and 3. Then go up to your next inversion, play the 2 first, followed by the 1 and 3. Go up to the next inversion, 2 first, followed by 1 and 3. And then I like to finish it, so we'll go back to root position. Now, you might not be surprised to hear you can do it the other way. So we did 2 followed by 1 and 3, right? How about we try it the other way going down? We'll play 1 and 3 followed by 2. Nice little finger puzzle. Teaches you some independence of your fingers while working with some shapes and puzzles. So we'll start out with that root position up here. We're going to play the 1 and 3. Put all 3 fingers on like before. We'll play the 1 and the 3 followed by the 2 by itself. See if you can do it. It's really very fun to try working with your fingers that way, and you may find some things in your music where it's handy to place all of those fingers and be ready to go. It's kind of fun to do. So let's do it with the left hand as well. So we will do the root position, and I'll do the 2 first, followed by the 1 and the 3. And here's first inversion, second inversion, and root again. And then going down, we'll do the same thing we did in the right hand, where we play the 1 and the 3 first, followed by the 2. if you would like to learn more about the different shapes of the chords, I recommend when you're playing any piece of music, take whatever key you're in. In this case, we were being in the key of C. And before you even practice your music, you're looking at your music, you're practicing, you say, well, what should I do to warm up? Figure out what key you're in. Let's say we're in the key of G. Let's change this. Let's put our F sharps up and put it in the key of G. And you say, well, I'd kind of like to learn those inversions in the key of G. So just use that G chord, that root position G chord, that's what's called the 1 chord in the key of G. And practice that same thing with the G chord, just to teach yourself to get around the harp a little bit. So we'll do it with the left hand. So we've got our root position, and we'll start out with the G, B, and D, which is the root position of G chord. And we'll do the 2 followed by the 1 and the 3, just like we did with the C chord. It's going to sound a little different because we're on a different chord. And then going down, we'll do it the other way. We'll play the 1 and the 3 followed by the 2. I think it's a very fun thing to do. I'm going to put it back in C. I think it's a very fun thing to do to teach your fingers to be independent. You might enjoy that. You can do it in any order, any manner that you like. Another thing that I want to show you that's very useful in the world of finger puzzles and shapes is a common shape that we use in the left hand. In accompaniment in the left hand, we use a chord that's like this, or together. And what I'm playing is, and I went back to the key of C, and I'm playing a C chord, and I'm playing the C, the G, and the C again. The C is the root, right? I've left the E out, and I put the C on top. And this, I call this the 1, 5, 1. We do this so much in the harp, in the left hand. We use 4, 2, and 1. From the 4 to the 2 is a fifth, C, D, E, F, G. And from the 2 to the thumb is a fourth, G, A, B, C. We use this all the time in our music. All the time. You've heard this before. Your left hand is always reaching down to do that shape as a lovely accompaniment to what you're playing. And there's a really fun way to practice this. And we'll do it both broken and blocked. We'll start out with it blocked. And we'll start on C, which is going to be C, G, and C. Then we'll go down to A, and we'll have A, E, and A. That was kind of cool. Then we're going to go up to D. So we have D, A, and D. Then we're going to go down to G, which is going to be G, D, and G. And then we're going to come back to C. Okay. So if we do it all together, we're on C, we're on A, we're on D, we're on G, and we're back to C. And each of those was the exact same shape. First, we played those blocked, right? Meaning you play all 3 notes at the same time. And now we can do the same thing broken, which is also used commonly in accompaniment. So first we do it on C, C, G, and C. We'll do broken. Then we'll do it on A, E, and A. Then we'll go to D, D, A, and D. Then we'll do it on G, G, D, and G. And then back to C. C, G, and C. So I'll play those all together now so you can hear it go together. So because we use this shape So often in harp, especially with the left hand, the goal is to be able to find that shape quickly without having to find absolutely every note. The way I find that shape is I look for where my thumb goes, and I know what that feels like, that thumb, 2, and 4. I can find that without even looking at the harp. I can find those because it's so commonly used. And you might have that as a finger shape goal. You can also do another fun puzzle with that, where you play the 4 followed by 1 and 2 together. So you would set that up, the same shape, but you play the 4 followed by the 1 and 2. This could be part of an accompaniment to a piece of music. Same group of chords, but we turned it into a puzzle because we've separated them. So we learned this chord progression, right? I'm going to show you something fun you can do with it. So, I hope that you enjoyed this session of finger puzzles and shapes for the harp. If you would like to learn more about my 60-page book called Finger Puzzles and Shapes for the Harp, featuring a 90-minute DVD, you can go over to our website, Tapestry Duo, that's tapestryduo.com, and you can print out an order form, you can send us an email, or you can give us a call and order by credit card if you would like. Thank you, and happy harping!